You may be seated. Well, well, well. What a bright glow the preacher sees as he scans the room, filled with beloved friends, whose spirits are alive with the radiance of love, the bright and shining image of that one Holy One. Thank you for making the time to be here this morning. Welcome to a place of fellowship and love, where we now turn to the scriptures, which of course are the vocabulary of our spirits. And we're going to consider a story, while written long ago, is squarely aimed at you and me this morning. Isn't that the magic of Scripture? Have you ever wondered how the Bible does that? Have you ever wondered why the Bible has been the bestseller for so long in so many countries, among so many people? And that's why. It is because the Bible is a spirit book. It's a book that resonates with your spirit. And when we read it, we hear its teachings, we ponder its sayings. It is the spirit within us that better connects with God, the Creator, the Redeemer, but even perhaps even more, theologian Paul Tillich defined God as the ground of our being, the very ground of our being. God's not some far off, far away human-like person. No, God is the underlying foundation of all that is, ever present and ever mindful, who has given each one of us inside our bodies that same spirit. Ever wonder why you are so wonderful? Well, that's why. Just as God is love, so are you. At your core, not needing to be fixed, not needing to do anything but accept your belovedness. Isn't that the biggest challenge we have? To accept our acceptance from God. To accept, as I mentioned last weekend, that you are lovable, you are loving, and you are loved. And we meet this love in the flesh, in Jesus, in today's gospel, which begins as Jesus is inviting these cast-outs, these tax collectors and sinners, to come near and to listen to him. This is when the religious people of his day start to grumble. The scribes, the Pharisees, they said, this fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them. And who can blame them? Because when you look at how these guys were raised, tradition that they're in, they've been raised up in a religion with rules that were made to keep them holy, keep them set apart for God's service, sacred rituals, holy habits established to help channel that light within them towards goodness and joy. But like all religions, it is ever in danger. It is perennially subject to new generations of people. They come along, they're good at obeying the rules, but they're not so good at actually yielding to the light inside of them, which is the call for each one of us, to yield to that good voice of that good self inside of each of us. And so these people, they can twist and turn that religion into something that prioritizes power or money or political prestige over the very yearning of their spirit that has been pushed aside and replaced by that diabolical demon of self-enrichment. We have all seen it time and again. Religion becomes a sword, religion becomes a hammer, religion becomes a conqueror, an empire, a political party, a disgrace to the people who established it and to the God whom it purports to serve. It's a cautionary tale. Be very wary about whom we declare is in and who is out, because as we all discover in this story, God's definition may be much different, may be much wider than our own. This is why an attitude of generous curiosity is what we're asked to embody. This may have been the very attitude that these scribes and Pharisees had. We don't know, the story doesn't tell us. But they asked, as we should, as we probably would have if we had been living at that time, who is this new person named Jesus? Let's inquire, let's converse, and let us never be taken in by the temptation to believe that we have all the answers we need. There's no need of new evidence. We've found the truth, full stop. We always have a need to learn and to listen and to grow. This is when we consider the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk. He was that right-wing political provocateur who was senselessly gunned down talking to college students at a rally in Utah this week. You probably can't really miss it on the news. Yeah, he was opinionated, he was provocative, he was coarse, and he offended a lot of people. He stood for a version of America that resonated with many people. And he made full use of our nation's freedoms to give his opinion, to spread his message. This is not a reason to kill him. Charlie Kirk's assassination is a stain on all of America. It's a challenge to all good people to stand up and to stop the madness of addressing disputes with violence, and I'm sure you noticed with gun violence. The litany of politically charged shootings and murders this year is something you don't need a preacher to remind you of. You guys hear enough of that elsewhere. But we all need to hit the pause button and ask ourselves, what can we do and how can we help this ratcheting up of our political discourse? And one tack is to remind ourselves that it starts with us, because we are, at the end of the day, the only ones who can really change. And if we want to live in a loving, compassionate, civil, respectful society, we need to be loving, compassionate, civil, and respectful people. That's a big reason why I hope you come to St. David's. And a big reason places of worship are so important in our society. We need to cultivate the loving spirit inside of us and see that resonate out into the world. Doesn't mean you can't take political action, doesn't mean there are movements you can't get involved with. But our core strategy needs to start with ourselves. We need to cater to the desires of that spirit in you, to be fed and watered by the good things that we know to surround ourselves with. We know the habits and routines that can make us better, toning down those voices and influences that make us anxious and selfish and scared, and turning up those voices and influence that connect us with spirit. How well are you tending to your spirit these days? Are you taking good care of that part of your life? Spending enough time in places and doing things that build up. You see, you are what you surround yourself with. If you're walking around all day with an ear plugged in, listening to the crazy news out there, guess what you're going to be? Anxious and scared and distanced from that voice that you have inside of you that tells you all will be well. All will be well. In all manner of things, all will be well. It's connecting with spirit. That is our main discipleship goal. Now, when I ask if you're spending enough time in places and doing things that build you up, it's not just church and churchy things, but in nature. We have this new 9 o'clock class that we have called Just One Question, where we ask one question. The question today was, when was the time in your life when you felt heaven? And we had one, and I'm sure we have many here, who will say it's out in nature. It's being one while we hike. It's experiencing the awe and wonder of the creative goodness. Is it listening to music? Is it even playing games to connect yourself with your spirit? What can you do this week to better connect with spirit? That ever-present part of you, that is joy, that is kindness, that is generosity, that is forgiveness, that is love. This is why, starting on Thursday, October 3rd, we're kicking off a new class. It's a weekly class. It's called Living Loved. Living Loved. For 1 hour each Thursday from 7 to 8 in the parish hall, you're invited to this weekly drop-in gathering, open to the community, that explores a different twist on love at every meeting. We want to become better lovers, and we want you to come as well. Topics include self-forgiveness, self-compassion, negative love, vindictiveness, forgiveness, and how we can better radiate love into the world. It's for anyone who wants to more deeply cultivate that loving spirit within. And together, we can become better friends and better lovers. Now, this is exactly what God is after when the sheep owner leaves behind those 99 sheep and searches for that one lost sheep. Hopefully, I always wondered about this, maybe you did this story. If he just left 99, where did he leave them? I hope he locked them up. I hope he put somebody in charge. But we don't know. Hopefully they had water and food and all they needed as he went out and he hunted for that one missing sheep. It's what the woman with the lost coin is doing too. He had 99, he goes for the one. She had 9, she goes for the 10. Well, what both stories emphasize is the diligence of the seeker who went out, left everything, started looking, and the attitude taken when that item was restored, right? The sheep owner comes back with nothing but joy by finding that wayward sheep. He says, rejoice with me, I found my sheep that was lost. And he asks his friends and neighbors, come rejoice with me too. Just as the woman, she finds a lost coin. She's so overtaken with joy that she goes out, and I wondered if she even used that entire coin to pay for the party she had when she invited everybody to rejoice. And this is not just a party for the neighborhood, we're told. There's also joy in heaven in the presence of the angels when the lost have been found. So what is this about? Well, in Hebraic understanding, there's a big emphasis on numbers and on completion. And so 99 is almost there, but 100 is complete. 9 is almost there, but 10 is complete. And God's mission to restore the world, to fix all the things that are off, and to bring them to fruition and to fullness. God is on a relentless mission to bring you and me to completion. God is working hard in your life and in mine to bring you to completion. Is that always easy? No. You hear voices that criticize you and complain. Well, don't cast them out. Listen to them. Maybe God talking to you. Because God's bringing you to completion, to restore us to our heavenly selves. And you know what the heavenly self is? It is you 100% actuated by Spirit, where your love and your compassion and your goodness and your kindness so naturally come through. And I see that in so many of you. Many of you saw Bernie Less, as I pointed out before, who talks about this, the self and the presented self, right? Very different. What we want to do is try to make that gap very small so that people can see that love that's inside of us, that joy, that peace, that patience. So we're already filled, we're already sealed, we're already marked with that love through creation, through baptism, through the Holy Spirit coming to us. But we all have our ways of getting lost, leaving that path of love, that spiritual path of the Spirit. How are you getting lost today? How might you get lost this week? Think ahead. Some of those things that might take you off track. It'll happen. But the beauty and the good news of this passage is that God is a God who searches you out. This is a story about the diligence that God has, constantly pulling us back to that path of love where we're happiest. We are happiest when we're loving. That's the best joy that we experience on earth. This parable is about restoring you and me to the loving, Spirit-filled people that we are at our core, bringing us back onto the path to be found by God all over again. It's a famous saying about a monk once asked, what do monks do? Well, they got knocked over and they pick themselves up. They get knocked over, and they pick themselves up. They got knocked over and they pick themselves up. So much of life is like that. Restoring ourselves to our core. And who are we at our core? Well, you're a beloved child of God. To quote the prayer book, it's on page 845. We are part of God's creation, made in God's image. What does that mean? Well, the prayer book continues. It means we have choices. It means we have choices. And the gracious invitation we get this morning is for us to choose the path of love, to choose those things that get us and keep us on that spiritual path where we're not lost in worry and anxiety and self-service, where the fears we may be cultivating over the possibility of more political violence, gender preference persecution, or even economic woes are able to take a backseat because you, my friend, and I live in the Spirit. We live in the radiance of God's Spirit inside of us. Spirit will always get us through. It may not be how we want to go. It may be tough, but Spirit will always get us through. We see the sheep owner and the woman who lost the coin. They're good spiritual examples. Did you notice the restoration after they found what they were looking for? If I had to leave 99 sheep, pay somebody to watch and feed them, whatever, for God knows how long, go out in the wilderness, hunt for that sheep, search and finally find it, I'm not so sure I would have been so nice to that sheep. Did you notice there was no shaming, there was no blaming, there was no punishing, there was no chastising? He didn't yell at that sheep. What did he do? Put it on his shoulders. Now that's one of the most intimate places you can put anybody, right next to your head, right next to your cheeks. And he carefully, he gently, he kindly, he lovingly brought you back. That's who God is. That's how God treats situations like that. Let's ask ourselves about how we shame, blame, punish, chastise, criticize. This is how the Spirit acts. And this is what the Spirit invites us to do, to live in love. What places are there in our lives where we're shaming, blaming, punishing, chastising, finding regular homes for those things? Is it with other people? Is it with institutions and corporations? Is it with yourself? Again, where are you going to start, folks? With yourself. How is your self-talk going? Right? We can be very good at talking very poorly to ourselves. You know what happens when you do that? Turn to an angry person. Talk to yourself lovingly, kindly. Talk to yourself like you talk to your best friend. God does that. So why don't we? Now, I began my remarks noticing how bright it is in here, how aglow with the radiance of your love. And here's a definition of love I recently heard. Love is the flowing, the outpouring, the rendering from the heart and soul of emotional goodness to yourself first and to others. Love is the flowing, the outpouring, the rendering from the heart and soul of emotional goodness towards yourself first, then to others. Jesus famously said in Mark 12, love your neighbor as yourself. We all know the golden rule. How are you loving yourself? How are you pouring out that emotional goodness that God has for you? And not just bypassing it to other people, like the church always beats you on the head to do, but keeping it for yourself first. You know, it's like when you go to the airport, right? You got a little kid next to you, you sit in the plane, and you say, okay, if something happens here, don't help your kid. Help yourself first. Now, for any parent, that's really hard to do. But the idea is, when you help yourself, you can help your kid. By loving yourself, you can love other people. Each one of us, inside these walls and beyond, must find ways to cultivate and walk in that love. It's what our nation, our communities, and many of our souls sorely, sorely need. And the good news is that we're being tracked down right now by a force much bigger than ourselves who is bound and determined to complete us, to complete you in love. Oh, and it's happening right now. It's getting brighter and brighter in here. Next Sunday, I'm bringing sunglasses. Amen?